Hello and welcome to the Creating Healthy Wealth and Motherhood podcast with me, your host, PT Morgan of leveragedmama.com. Hey, and welcome to episode 8. So today, this might be a little bit of a noisy episode. We've got a little bit of activity going on in my house because both my husband and my daughter are home, but they are the quiet ones, actually. The ones making noise are the neighbours who have builders over ripping off the roof of the garage. So you will hear bird song, you will hear banging, you will hear cats and things. And hey, considering you've already put up with crickets and all sorts of things, I'm thinking if you're still here, it's going to be okay. So we're just going to roll with it. So in episode 8, we're looking at how we, being my husband and I, used Dave Ramsey's debt snowball method to pay off almost $70,000 of consumer debt in a healthy way. There's the kicker, because this is the Creating Healthy Wealth and Motherhood podcast, isn't it? So, all right, how we did that. We're going to start just by kind of recapping on what consumer debt is, unless you are unclear, okay? So consumer debt is things like credit cards, personal loans, store cards, lay-bys, anything where you're paying it off and incurring interest, or maybe sometimes not. Things like a car loan, they're typically unsecured and have varied amounts of interest, but they depreciate quickly. It's not like when you're buying a house. You are supposed to be buying an asset that is appreciating and going up in value, and it is what you are securing your borrowing against. But a credit card or a store card, this is all unsecured, and it's consumer debt used to buy things that are depreciating in value. Sometimes it's called dumb debt, and it's a bit ouchy sometimes, because sometimes you've got to create this kind of debt to survive, and this happens to be how we got in so much consumer debt, because it was about survival. I was going to talk about a debt story a little bit later and introduce Dave Ramsey, but I feel like it's probably appropriate to go into that debt story now. Because you're probably wondering, how did you get into 70K's worth of consumer debt through survival? Right, well, if you do or do not know, I will recap. I was made redundant when I was pregnant, and this redundancy, combined with some poor spending habits, caused the accumulation of some pretty high consumer debt levels. So both my husband and I had high incomes at the time, in the 6 figures, and we didn't really have any constraints or restraints because we weren't saving for a house at the time. We didn't have a mortgage to pay off. We had, both of us, pretty poor financial educations, and we hadn't taken responsibility for improving our financial educations yet. And I say that because I don't want to blame anyone for my poor financial education. I'm not going to blame the schooling system. I'm not going to blame my parents. I'm not going to blame anybody, because I am an intelligent adult, and I chose not to learn more about this subject. So I believe it is my responsibility, and it always has been. Although I wouldn't tell you the same about how I'm educating my daughter. It might sound hypocritical, but we'll get to that anyway. So we had our attitudes towards money and our mindsets about money and about debt were very, very different than they are now. And that caused us to become into quite a bad situation with consumer debt. You know, $70,000 in New Zealand dollars when you've lost an income, you've gone down to one income, and you're having a baby, is not a great place to be in, as you can probably imagine. So actually, Ruth at The Happy Saver did a podcast episode on my debt story called Consumer Debt Be Gone. I will link to it in the show notes, where she tells about, how this all came about. So if you're interested in hearing more about my debt story, then please do listen to that episode of The Happy Saver. It's number 21, Consumer Debt Be Gone. So let's talk about Dave Ramsey. Who is Dave Ramsey? I actually discovered Dave Ramsey through a book that I read at the very beginning of my financial awakening, I guess you could call it. This was back in 2015, probably 2016. I read The Total Money Makeover and I thought, oh my gosh, that he just makes it sound so simple, how to get out of debt and get on top of your money situation. He's a USA-based guy. So remembering that their health and education and tax systems, etc., are quite different. Well, a little different to ours here in New Zealand, but the principles can be applied in the same way, the principles he teaches. He's actually quite evangelistic, but for some people that can be really motivating. It was really motivating for me in the beginning, but once I got control of things, I kind of moved on. But the thing about Dave Ramsey is that he has been he's been around for a while, and so therefore can provide loads of support and resources for people who are looking to get out of debt and get on top of their money situations. He's got something called Financial Peace University, where you can learn his principles. I think that people can teach them locally, so you can go to an actual in-person class, or you can do it online. He's got books, podcasts, there's Facebook groups and things you can join. So it's a really, really good place to start if you just like, gosh, what do I do about my money situation? I know I do have some listeners out there that already do follow Dave Ramsey, and a lot of his views and principles I do agree with and support, and they really have helped me a lot. But as with anything, we like to adapt. So, what is this Snowball method? So the Snowball method of paying off debt and getting financially free is part of Dave Ramsey's Baby Steps program, which are basically simple steps to taking control of your money. The debt snowball is baby step 2. So baby step 1, you basically save $1,000 for an emergency fund. That's the very first thing that you do, is $1,000 in cash for the emergency fund. And then you move on to baby step 2, which is about paying off all of your debt, except for your house if you have a mortgage. So there's about 77 of these baby steps, and they are to make it simple and digestible and not so overwhelming, and for you to think, I can see a path to financial freedom here. So I'll just run through the steps briefly if you're not familiar. Baby step 1, save $1,000 for your emergency fund. That's the starter emergency fund. There is either a Hercules or a Galaxy at the airport right now, so it's really noisy. Lucky you. Baby step 2, pay off all of your debt except the house using the debt snowball. Baby step 3, you save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. That's the next level emergency fund. Handy in times like this, isn't it? Baby step 4 is that you invest 15% of your household income in your retirement. Number 5 is you save for your children's college fund or university. 6, pay off your home early. And then 7 is you build your wealth. And then you give at the same time. So we took this and used this to, we followed what do we do to get on top of this in the very beginning? We followed baby step 1 and put away $1,000. Very first thing we did, have that cash, and that made us feel great. just because we'd been living in such a negative mindset with money for so long, we didn't actually have cash. We just had credit cards. So having actual cash was a really good start and made us feel really great. But what we did then was to list all of our debts, big to small, just list them all out, and got a really good understanding of what those debts were. So when you list them out, it can be a little bit overwhelming depending on your situation. I think we had about 15 different debts. So we had credit cards, store cards. There was things like paying off an iPhone on our Vodafone accounts, both of us. We had loans from the bank, personal loans from the bank, personal loans from another lender, and it was all just quite overwhelming, to be honest. So listing them out, although it was a really big step and very revealing, at least we knew. So part of that process was, okay, how much do we owe exactly? What is the interest rate on this? What is the terms? How often do we need to pay? We were on top of all of our payments, but just having it all listed out, this is a monthly payment. This is due by the 20th of blah, blah. This is the interest here is that. When is it going to be paid off? So you line up all these debts in an Excel spreadsheet. You put the smallest at the top and the largest at the bottom. So when I found that, oh gosh, we've got so many, even though Dave doesn't recommend it, I did consolidate a few of them into one line. And this was because my headspace was just like, oh, this is gross. I can't, there's so many of them, I felt that mentally I could handle it better if I had less debts to worry about. So I did consolidate quite a few of those debts into one personal loan. And that meant that it was tidier. It was definitely tidier. So going back to Dave's Snowball method, the idea is you pay off the minimum of the smallest loans, the bare minimum, and then you pay as much as you can on the biggest loan. You go out and figure out how to get more money. So you might choose to work more, pick up another job, create another income stream. You might choose to sell some stuff. You might choose to lower your expenses. You might choose to call on some debts that are owed to you. Who knows? He recommends doing everything you can to create as much money so that you can pay off as much as possible of that biggest debt while paying the minimum on all the rest. They're all up to date. They're all being paid, and that's great. So where I hacked this is that I did not go out and get an extra job. I mean, I'd been made redundant, right? I haven't worked full-time since then, and I don't intend to work full-time in a job again. So that's one thing I chose not to do, but instead I did create, I sold a lot of stuff I wasn't using, reduced expenses, really got on top of our spending, and reined that in quite significantly. And this is how we came across the money to pay more of our biggest loan. And as the smaller debts were paid off, like the store cards, I remember putting the store cards and the credit cards in the freezer, and then just so I couldn't actually use them, I deleted them from my online sources, so I couldn't just use them online. And as they were paid off, we'll close it. Most of the time, we would take that money that, once we'd paid off a debt, you're supposed to take the money that minimum payment that you were paying off the small ones, and shift that money into paying it onto the next one down. And this is where the snowball thing comes into it. So you pay off the first small loan and take the payment that you were putting into that and put into the next smallest loan in the list. And so on as you pay them off, as you pay them off, as you pay them off. Sometimes we did that. Sometimes we didn't, because we did go through a period of like, this is just unsustainable, and we literally cannot cannot manage. This is driving us crazy, and we're so feeling deprived and feeling pretty miserable. So we would actually just take the debt repayments down. That's one way that I made it healthier for motherhood. Dave Ramsey would probably disagree, but he's not the one living in my shoes. He's not the one who got postnatal depression. He's not the one who suffered from burnout after working in the startup, that sort of thing. So you have to make these decisions based on your own situation and your family needs, etc. So where we're at now is actually we have just one loan left to pay. It's the last one. We're down to under 20k worth of consumer debt now. So this is over the course of about 3.5 years. We've paid about 50,000 off with me working part-time. So that's been really, really encouraging. It's probably important to talk about how I felt about the debt when we first had it and why I decided to go down this route of we've got to get rid of it. Because some people are quite happy to live with a level of debt. But for me, it caused too much anxiety. I was feeling really overwhelmed by it. I was definitely experiencing feelings of losing control. And, once I was made redundant, I was like, gosh, I don't have that buffer now. Like, I can't ignore my crappy money behaviour anymore. I felt really ashamed of myself for the situation that I'd gotten myself into, and I felt guilty for the spending that I had been doing, the unchecked spending. I felt really childish as well, as in, gosh, at that point I was almost 40, and I was like, you haven't sorted your money crap out, and this is just embarrassing. I did feel a lot of really negative feelings about my debt. And literally it was like, the party's over, sister. You're pregnant, you ain't got no job. What are you going to do now? Like, it came to a screeching halt. So that was pretty awful. So how do I feel now that we've gotten on top of things? I feel really empowered, actually. I feel really, really empowered because I know that I can learn anything. Maybe I didn't know much about money before, but I know a lot about money now, and I know how things work. And through this process, I not only know how to manage my own money, but I actually even understand more about how the economy works, which is kind of comforting at the time that we're in now, facing a recession because of the coronavirus fallout. I understand the decisions that the governments have to make, and for their people and for their economies. I just know how things work a lot more now. I feel a lot more clued up about things, and that's really, when you think about how childish I felt before, and how anxious and overwhelmed I felt, I feel much more in control now, definitely, and I feel like more of an adult, to be honest. Definitely more empowered. So again, in terms of making Dave Ramsey's Snowball method of debt repayment healthier for motherhood, it's that you've got to consider your own situation. Can you work more without really affecting your mental and physical health and your family? Is there another way to reduce your expenses? For example, like with us, we downsized our home. We moved to a much smaller and more affordable rental home, and it was a bit of a shock in the beginning, but we've grown to really love it. We downsized our lifestyle quite significantly, and almost too much so, though. As I talked about before, it was not sustainable. We didn't maintain the repayments level that Dave Ramsey suggests, because that was unsustainable. We just needed a little bit of loosening of the belt so that we could breathe. And the other really big thing I did in particular was I stopped religiously observing how my debt repayment was going. I used to have this incredible, I would have said at the time, incredible spreadsheet which showed you the precise date of that payoff, that when I would be debt free, when our family would be totally debt free. And in the beginning it was like, yeah, this is really cool. We understand all the differences we make when we change this and change that. Oh, the galaxy is going to take off again in a second. So, hey, you can enjoy the sound of it too. It's a pretty cool plane. Unless it gets too loud, and then I'll have to turn it off. So anyway, I stopped this practice. I actually deleted 3 years off the end of my budget so that I couldn't see when the debt repayment date was going to be, because I felt that it was too all of my focus was going there instead of stopping and smelling the roses and going, look at how much you've learned, look at how much better you are with your money now, look at how few cards you have, yay, you're credit card free. All of these things I was ignoring because I kept focusing on this future of debt repayment and the date, when will I be debt free. So I stopped that. I still review my my debt and savings and investments at least on a monthly basis, and I do it with my husband as well, so that we know what's going on, but we're not completely all over it. It's a little bit more like we can review it in an aerial fashion, drop in and over it with your helicopter and go, yeah, I see, I understand, but I don't need to have every single cent and date absolutely worked out. So, yeah, this is using Dave Ramsey's debt repayment snowball method really did help us, and is one of the main reasons why we got on top of our debt, along with his Total Money Makeover book. So I really do recommend that if you are in a situation of feeling overwhelmed with your debt, whether that's consumer debt or mortgage debt or any kind of debt really, is to pick something like that up and find somebody that you resonate with that can help you work through the steps that it's going to take to get on top of things. Nowadays, like I don't listen to Dave Ramsey's podcasts, or I'm not intending on doing a debt-free scream, which is what people can do once they pay off their debt. We'll do something else fun. But he gave me what I needed at the time, and I'm eternally grateful. So, how have you paid off debt in the past? What has worked for you in the past? Have you learned anything about the way, how much money you can survive on? Do you need more? Do you need less? How do you feel about your debt? These are all feelings and things that you can explore to help you pay off your debt and save and invest in a really healthy way, one that really suits you and your family and your situation. Nobody's situation is the same. No one's situation is the same. And that is what I think is going to really help with the health of your debt repayment, is paying attention to what you need, and not, okay, well, you might feel guilty and shameful and all those terrible things, but you can and you will get on top of it. There are so many resources out there to be able to reclaim and get on top of things, get control, that all you need is the desire to do so. You can forget your past kind of mistakes. They're only mistakes if you don't learn from them, remember? So I'd love to hear your tips about what's really worked for you in debt repayment, or what things would you advise other people to avoid? Come into the Facebook group and let's chat about it, because everyone's going through their own stuff, and particularly right now there will be people that are feeling nervous about their debt and worried and concerned because perhaps there's going to be a reduction in income in the coming months. So please share your tips and talk about your situations, because people are listening and people do feel the support and feel the love and feel the you can teach others from your experience as well. And that is pretty much why I share the details of my own debt story so freely, because I know that there will be people out there in a maybe better, maybe worse situation that maybe share the same types of feelings as I did, but know that there is a way out, and it's okay. Like, if you're listening to this, you're on the way out. You are on the way to being totally in control of things and on top of your own money. So I hope you got something out of this somewhat short episode. And please hit me up with your questions and comments in the Facebook group. Thanks again. See ya. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've listened and enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review on the podcast. This will help other mamas out there who might need to hear this discover the podcast. If you want to join us in the Facebook group, Creating Healthy Wealth in Motherhood, come on in and have a chat. I'd love to get your feedback, your questions, and to get to know you. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.